Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about hydration, dough hydration. It's basically defined as the grams of water divided by the grams of flour in your mix. And that includes the grams of flour and water in your starter. So it's the total water divided by flour. Now, most of my sourdoughs have a 70 to 80% hydration levels. I like to shoot for somewhere between 75 and 80. The last video I did, my basic sourdough, was a 78% hydration dough. I've baked as low as 65 and I've gone as high as 100% hydration when I'm making a ciabatta bread. Now, why is hydration important? Well, it's important because it changes the flavor profile of your bread. In general, the higher hydration, the more flavor you get out of your bread, up to a certain point. It also changes the crumb quite a bit. The higher the hydration, the bigger the crumb, the bigger the bubbles, like a ciabatta bread. But it depends on how you handle it. If you don't handle it properly, you could still get small crumb, even with a high hydration dough. So, I'm going to do this video and show you what it's like working with a high hydration dough. In this case, I'm going to do a 90% hydration sourdough. And let's see what the difference is. Here's my first mix with 90% hydration dough. See how loose it is, how sticky it is? It's not really a shaggy ball of dough that we got with the 78% hydration sourdough mix. Kind of jiggly, hard to mix, very sticky. It's just interesting. It's different to work with it. There we go. As a comparison, here's a video clip I took out of my basic sourdough recipe at 78% hydration doing the mixing. Big difference in the dough. This is a 12% difference in hydration. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it makes a big difference when it comes to working with the dough. This is my first set of stretch and folds with 90% hydration. It's actually folding pretty well, although it's you see how sticky it is? It's just very loose, jiggly dough. I don't know how else to describe it, but just sticky, 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 hard to work with. Right after you fold it, immediately starts spreading out. Doesn't really hold a lot of structure to it. It's just, look at that. Yuck. So it's just hard to work with. And it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a lot of patience to work with this kind of dough. This is round two of stretch and folds after resting for 20 minutes. Still sticky, still loose. You need to wet your hands quite often to keep the dough from sticking to it. You can see it's actually building a little structure. The thing is, it doesn't hold its structure. If I stop and give it like 10 minutes, everything will just blob out and like a big amoeba. Okay, my third set of stretch and folds, and I'm going to go to a coil fold. Ooh, look at that. That's a coil fold. You lift it up and you kind of fold it back on itself. It's easier to use this type of folding technique when you've got really high hydration dough. It's also very gentle on the dough, which is what you're looking for. You always want to stretch and fold and or do your coil folds or your laminations, depending on what method you're using, very gently. You're trying to give it elasticity, build strength, but at the same time, if air bubbles are starting to build inside the dough, you don't want to push them out. This is already my third fold. Look how loose it still is. Here is my fourth set of folds. I'm going to end up doing about 6 on this before it's all done. That's about double what I did with a 78% hydration dough, but it needs that extra care because it's harder to build structure with that very, very loose wet dough. But you can see it's starting to build a little bit. It's starting to look really good. Okay, my dough into a container that's wetted not an aliquot jar this time. I'm going to watch the rise and follow the same ratios I did with a 78% hydration sourdough, rise time and temp. Bulk fermentation is complete, and now I'm doing the pre-shape. Make sure you generously flour your hands. Look how wet and sticky that dough is. It's all kind of jiggly. It's just high hydration, and it's hard to keep the structure in it. And you see after I fold it, it just starts immediately spreading out. But you follow the same process, and just make sure you use a lot of flour on your hands and on your dough scraper. And gonna do my pre-shape. It pre-shapes up pretty well, but I can guarantee you that when I let it rest for 10 minutes, it's going to start spreading out. And there we have it. After 10 minutes of rest, it's spread out quite a bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do another pre-shape on it. I'm going to keep trying to tighten up that dough as much as I can. No problem doing a second pre-shape. It just adds more structure. Ugh, sticky, sticky, sticky. Lots of flour. And let's do another pre-shape. And then we're going to rest another 10 minutes and see if the dough holds together a little better. See how sticky it is? It's just the higher hydration. Okay, 2 pre-shapes. Now I'm actually going to shape this dough. So just like I did with the last one, spread it out, make myself a little rectangle. I'm going to do the football batard just like I did with the last one. But you can see how loose it is and how sticky it is. It's just harder to work with. I have no other way of saying it. But I'm going to use the same basic stretch folding technique I used on the other one. I'm working fairly quickly because it keeps spreading out on me. I'm going to do stitches on it. Do my fold over like I did with the other dough. You see how I keep flouring my hands? I have to keep doing that. It's just tough to work with. And the only thing I can tell you is don't be afraid of your dough. It's, as I heard people say on other blogs, it senses your fear. So don't be afraid of it. Just keep working with it. It'll get done. There you go. Nicely into my Banneton. I'm going to do the same I did with my 78 hydration. I'm going to add some rice flour on top, some rice flour on the sides. I've already rice floured my Banneton before I put the dough in. And I'm going to cover it. I'm going to put it in the fridge. And then we're going to let it proof overnight to build that nice flavor in the dough that we get with sourdough. Now we're going to score and bake. I had to be quick about this because as I took it out of the Banneton, it's already starting to spread out on my sling. But be quick, be decisive. Scoring is a little different as well. You've got to be quick with your scoring or else it'll stick. So just be quick, concise, and firm with it. Bang, just like that. And be prepared because that ear is probably going to close up on you. Preheat to 475, put it in the close in the oven, drop to 450. But in this case, I'm going to bake it for 25 minutes covered instead of 20 because of the extra hydration in the dough. Uncover it, drop the temp to 425, and let it go for 30 minutes. You can see it's risen a little bit. It's got a little bit of an ear on it. It's not as much rise as I got with the lower hydration because it spread out a little bit when it went into the cloche. And there's the finished product. You notice it has a lower profile than the other one because again, it's spread out. I probably could have built more structure in the dough to get a stronger profile. But it's a good loaf of bread. It's got a nice crispy, chewy crust to it. And I bet you when I cut into it, it has a nice big open crumb in it. And there it is. Nice big open crumb, decent ear. It's a beautiful bake. I'm pretty happy with this, even though it took a lot of extra stretching, folding, and technique to use to work with the wet dough.